Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks, white light washing over Naomi Brooks as she gripped the polished oak of the courthouse podium. The seal of Fulton County gleamed above the judge's head. On the right side of the aisle, a row of journalists craned their necks. On the left, 3 children, 12-year-old Micah and the twins, Maya and Miles, sat holding hands, their feet barely touching the floor, trying to be brave. "Mrs. Brooks," the judge said, his voice a steady drumbeat, "pending final confirmation from the state comptroller, the settlement is approved. The royalty agreement you negotiated, plus the stock options in Kita Foods and Sunspire Energy, totals an estimated valuation of—" The judge paused and glanced at the papers again, as if the number might slip away before he could speak it into the room. $1.9 billion. A breathless sound rolled through the gallery, half gasp, half thunder. Naomi did not move. In a quiet corner of her mind, she watched a transparent version of herself remain still the way a rock remains still under a river. Her fingers kept a firm hold on the wood. Only the smallest tremor told the truth, that her life had just broken open like a sunrise. Then he was there. Darius. Sharp suit. Too much cologne. The familiar curve of his jaw. He moved from the second row as if pulled by a current and crossed the floor fast. The mistress, Selene, stood too, a thin smile held in place like a clip-on earring. The cameras shifted. Security leaned in. The judge lifted a hand, but the room had swallowed the rules whole. Heat filled the old air like a shout. Darius dropped to his knees right there in front of everyone. He didn't look at the judge. He looked at Naomi's shoes and finally up at Naomi's face. "Naomi, please," he said, voice rough with the gravel of pleading. "Hear me out." It should have felt like a triumph. It should have felt like the end of a long road. But Naomi's mouth tasted like tin. A mic floated toward them on a boom pole. A reporter fired a question about forgiveness, about second chances, about how stories like this inspire families everywhere. Another asked whether the triplets would keep the Brooks name or take Cole, their father's surname. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Cole, this is highly irregular." Selene stepped forward, diamonds flowering across her wrist. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, "my family has a direct interest in these proceedings. Certain agreements were signed years ago. If money is changing hands, we have a right to—" She stopped because a deputy had placed a calm hand at the edge of her elbow, a reminder that rights in a courtroom begin where noise ends. Naomi set her shoulders back. Her mind reached for a single thought that could hold. The number, 1.9 billion, didn't feel real. Numbers that large don't feel like money. They feel like storms. But the faces of her children were real. Micah's short, careful braids. Maya's bright eyes, half daring the world, half daring herself to believe it. Miles's small face, trying to be brave and failing, the way boys that age do, with honesty. "Mrs. Brooks," the judge said, returning to the script, "do you accept the settlement?" A clerk leaned toward Naomi with a pen. Paper waited, cold and patient. Darius pressed his palm to the floor, head bowed. "Naomi," he whispered, "I was wrong." Selene's smile twitched, like something living under glass. She spoke without looking at Naomi. "If she signs without acknowledging our lien, Your Honor, we'll file an injunction. We will drag this through every court from here to D.C. We will—" A side door opened. A woman in a navy suit glided in and stopped beside Naomi. She was new. Naomi had never seen her at any meeting, never heard her name. She held a single red envelope and leaned close enough for Naomi to catch a faint breath of mint. "From someone who wants you to have the truth before you sign." the woman murmured, voice so quiet it barely existed. Naomi took the envelope. Her fingers knew how to open paper. Years of calloused hands, years of counting coins at a kitchen table. She slid out a folded page and a photograph. Her eyes moved once across the page, then again. The world snapped into pieces like dry bread. The photograph showed a corner of yellowed paper, a deed from 1998, with a signature she knew as well as her own. Olson Brooks, her late father. The deed described parcels along the Chattahoochee, dry land you couldn't sell for a bus ticket 20 years ago, but rich now. Rich because Sunspire Energy had built a farm of quiet, staring solar panels that fed a city and an empire of factories and freezers. The typed note clipped to it said, "Recorded in error under Adeyemi Holdings, then pledged to a shell. Ask who signed your father's name." Naomi felt the room tilt. The judge repeated the question. "Mrs. Brooks, do you accept?" Darius lifted his face, eyes wet. Selene's hand floated to her throat. Somewhere near the back, a camera's battery died with a hollow crack. Naomi looked at the twins, at Micah. She looked at the signature one more time. Outside, a summer storm gathered its breath, the long inhale before lightning. She set the paper down slowly, very slowly, and lifted the pen. She did not sign. "I can't," Naomi said. "Mrs. Brooks?" the judge asked. Naomi swallowed. "Your Honor, before I answer, I need to know whose signature built this fortune." Selene's smile slipped. Darius's mouth opened and closed like a door that lost its hinges. A whisper rippled through the room. "Whose signature?" Naomi repeated, eyes on Selene now. "Because my father was in a coma the day this deed moved." Selene inhaled, about to speak. And then the courthouse lights flickered once. The storm finally exhaled. Thunder reached into the room like a hand, and the navy-suited woman who brought the envelope leaned to Naomi's ear and whispered a second message that made the floor vanish under Naomi's feet. "Someone tagged one of your children outside. They told him to run." The lights steadied. Security glanced toward the hallway doors. The judge lifted his gavel, uncertain. Naomi turned to the gallery, searching for 3 small faces. Only 2 looked back. Miles's chair was empty. Before he was a man in a suit kneeling on a courthouse floor, Darius Cole was a lanky boy who could make a plastic spoon sound like a saxophone. He walked Naomi home from youth choir because he liked the way her voice settled into the low harmony when everyone else fought for the high one. He chased scholarships and summer jobs, and he called Naomi every evening at the same time, as if hoping that routine could keep life from breaking. They married young, not because they were fools, but because love felt like a door you either walked through or let swing shut forever. They rented a small apartment in southwest Atlanta, thin walls that tried and failed to hold in the scent of somebody's nightly fried plantains, that let in the laughter of neighbors and the occasional midnight siren. All the world they owned fit into 2 drawers and a second-hand couch with a spring that pinched your thigh like a mean auntie. Pregnancy arrived not with a whisper, but a chorus. The ultrasound technician blinked at the screen, hit the side of the machine lightly, as if the image might rearrange itself into something simpler, and said without turning, "Do you see it, baby? 1, 2, 3. 3? Naomi asked. The word tasted of salt and sweetness and fear. "Triplets," the tech said, smiling now. "God must trust you." People are generous with words like trust when they are not the ones counting diapers. It was joyful, yes, joy crashing in with the force of a wave. But it was also grocery lists, written with a pencil nub, shoes with holes patched by patience, long nights, ice-wrapping ankles that felt carved from stone. It was Naomi on a bus with 3 infants, and the soft ache of strangers' pity following her like a scent. Darius worked double shifts at a fulfillment warehouse in East Point, came home smelling of cardboard and effort. He kissed the babies and then looked around the cramped room like a man searching for an exit he could not find. There are rich mistresses born into money, and rich mistresses who make their own. Selene was both, the only child of a Nigerian-American family whose money stood on the kind of certainty that comes when you own the land and the light on top of it. She met Darius at a charity gala where he worked security on his off night. She had a way of looking at a person as if she could see their future and fold it into hers. She laughed at his jokes, the good ones and the ones that needed help. She said she admired his discipline. She said, "You shouldn't have to sweat for crumbs when you could sit at a table with people who respect your hunger." Selene picked up the phone, and it was like the city leaned toward them, listening. A manager at the warehouse started calling Darius Sir. A consultant at Selene's family firm said there might be an entry-level spot in logistics if Darius could handle a 3-month training program. Then a short-term loan appeared, quiet and clean, to cover tuition and incidentals. Naomi could see the light that Selene carried into rooms, bright, hard, unstoppable. She didn't love that light, but she tried to respect it, until respect asked too much of her. "Training program is out of town," Darius said, eyes not meeting hers. 3 months. 3 months felt like 3 years when you're raising 3 babies with 2 hands. Naomi tried to smile anyway. "You'll learn everything," she said, "because love is a long habit of choosing the soft word first. You'll come back better." He returned on weekends at first. He brought hotel soaps and tired apologies. The babies knew him, but they didn't settle on his shoulder the way they did on Naomi's. Babies know where the weight of the world rests. When the training ended, there was a job offer in Houston. Better pay, an apartment on the nicer side of town, a car with air conditioning that worked even when the cars stopped moving. But it came with a tie that pulled tight. Work dinners, late nights, the low hum of a life separating from the old one. Naomi stayed in Atlanta with the Triplets. They would follow once everything stabilized, that fragile word people use to cover uncertainty with hope. Weeks stretched like rope. Darius called. Then he called less. Then he called with the kind of hesitation that knows it is building a story no one wants to hear. "It's not you," he said into the static. And Naomi knew it was her, and also not her. "It's opportunity. It's timing." "That's a funny name," Naomi said quietly, "for a woman." He didn't answer, and silence did what it always does. It told the truth nobody had the courage to say out loud. Selene's family had money that moved in straight lines. Purchase, build, leverage, own. There are women who bring you oranges when you are sick, and there are women who deliver ultimatums wrapped in silk. Selene brought the latter. Darius began to arrive in Atlanta only when there was something to collect. Papers, a suit he'd left, the last shards of his old intention. He began to speak in legal phrases like amicable separation and arrangements. He brought contracts to their kitchen table. He would support the children, of course. He would ensure provisions. The words tasted sour coming from him. He tried to make them sweet, but paper can't be sweet when the ink cuts like that. The day he finally left, the triplets were 8 months old. He kissed their foreheads, which is a kind of kindness and also a kind of cowardice. He looked at Naomi with something like shame and something like relief. He walked out holding a suitcase that did not look nearly large enough to carry away a marriage. Sometimes hell does not announce itself with flames. Sometimes it shows up as an eviction notice. The landlord, a woman with sharp eyebrows and a soft heart, gave Naomi extra time, because life recognizes life. But time ran out anyway. Naomi packed the apartment into boxes she labeled carefully with a black marker. Baby clothes, kitchen, hope. She called her Auntie Vera in College Park, who never had children but mothered every wandering thing that crossed her path. "Bring those babies," Auntie said. "We'll stretch what we have until it covers you." Auntie's house was small, the kind of small that insists on community. The neighborhood hands reached. A teenager came after school to help with bottles and bedtime. A neighbor with a garden brought collards and hot peppers, laughing, "Food tastes better when the road to the bowl is short." Naomi learned the truth of that. She learned other truths too. That you can stand at a stove at midnight and cry without waking a single child. That nothing in the world is as heavy and as holy as sleeping kids you carry from couch to bed. That love is a job not everyone is strong enough to keep. She needed money. Babysitting, braiding hair, selling puff-puff on Saturdays. Anything to keep the lights honest. One day, trying to thank the neighbor who kept dropping off peppers, she made a stew the way her father used to before the stroke. A rich red pepper sauce with a stubborn personality. Auntie Vera tasted it and closed her eyes. "We should sell this," she said, half joking. "People will fight each other for one jar." They didn't fight, but they bought. At first, 3 jars at a church bazaar, then 12 at a pop-up at the strip mall near the bus stop. Naomi printed labels on paper she cut with hand scissors, Brooks Family Red, and set prices so low she almost felt like apologizing. She learned to take mobile payments on a phone with a cracked screen. She learned to speak to strangers without rushing her words, to look them in the eye and say, "You'll like this. It tastes like home with a little fire." A cousin who worked nights as a cashier said the shelves at the small grocer looked lonely and might welcome something local. The grocer agreed to try 6 jars on consignment, then 12, then a steady 20 every week. The sauce became a quiet rumor moving through the neighborhood. "You know that girl with the triplets? Her stew is doing numbers." That's how success begins, not with trumpets, but with whispers. In a seminar at the public library, free, thank God, Naomi learned about perishable supply chains and the technology that keeps food honest from hand to shelf. She learned that small businesses drown not because they can't cook, but because they can't track. She started writing notes. What if the woman who grows peppers in her backyard could see the exact moment Naomi needed more? What if the grocer could reorder with a single tap? What if money could move as fast as a rumor when a mother needs it? She was not a programmer, but she was the kind of mind that builds bridges between needs and tools. The library had computers that took their time waking up. A volunteer who taught basic coding wore T-shirts that said punny things like semicolon. Life goes on. Naomi learned enough to be dangerous in the best way. She sketched a system on scrap paper. Growers, makers, vendors, a tiny river of data flowing between them. She called it Market Thread because it tied people together who didn't know they could be tied. A small foundation offered microgrants for ideas that help communities feed themselves. Naomi applied with a shaky voice and a solid plan. She got the grant, $2,000 that felt like $2 million because of what it allowed her to imagine. She bought a refurbished laptop and paid a neighbor's college nephew to help build a basic app. She recruited 3 aunties who grew peppers, tomatoes, and onions. Two women who made chin-chin and meat pies. The grocer who had believed in her stew. She promised transparency and a fair split. She did not promise miracles, but miracles, like plants, sometimes grow best when no one digs around the roots too much. Sunspire energy came later, and not because Naomi courted them. It came because success, once it wakes up, is a light that calls to other lights. Sunspire wanted to build a solar farm just south of the city and needed a nearby cold storage warehouse for a contract with Kita Foods, a fast-growing chain that sold simple meals at fair prices. They were looking for small-batch suppliers whose demand lines fit their new model. A consultant, one of those quiet men at the back of rooms who see everything, tasted Naomi's pepper sauce at a community event and said, "Our company needs people like you. We need to put your people into our system without crushing them." Meetings began. Contracts grew like a careful garden. Naomi didn't sign the first version, or the second, or the third. She made corrections with help from a volunteer lawyer and common sense. No crazy exclusivities, transparent payouts, penalties that didn't break small backs. They pushed back, and she pushed forward, and somewhere in the middle, to everyone's surprise, respect formed. It was respect that led to the royalty agreement when her data system proved so efficient that Sunspire asked to license the platform across several counties. It was respect that pushed Kita Foods to offer equity, not just cash, when Market Thread delivered them a 20% increase in on-time deliveries from neighborhood cooks. It was respect that made big doors swing open for a woman the city once ignored. The money was not billionaire money yet. It was pay a cousin to watch the kids so you can meet the contractor money. It was buy shoes that don't hurt and a coat that actually warms money. It was maybe we move into a place with a backyard so the twins can stop drawing hopscotch squares on the kitchen floor. Money. But the shape of something larger stood at the edge of sight, patient as a mountain. Darius reappeared during those early wins, at first by text, then by phone, then standing on the sidewalk outside Auntie Vera's house in a suit cut from newer cloth. He said the right words as if he had discovered them in a manual. "I'm proud. I'm sorry. I was lost." The twins watched him from the window like small scientists observing a specimen. Micah opened the door because his mother had taught him to be polite. Naomi offered tea because she prioritized peace over the satisfaction of slamming doors. Darius drank the tea and commented on how steady the house felt. "You did this," he said. And the "you" was bare, without sharing. But then his eyes slid to his phone, where Selene's name flashed like a lighthouse. He left before the tea cooled. Selene did not come to Auntie's house. Selene sent lawyers and typed lines that ended with, "per my last email." Her family, through a series of subsidiaries, owned land near Sunspire's new project. They had capital and appetite. They also had a history with documents and signatures that did not always like to be seen. When the settlement talks began, the royalty valuation that brought Naomi to the courthouse, Selene called Darius into rooms with long tables, where people wore suits the color of storms and laughed without showing teeth. She told him he had a right to position himself near the money that was entangled with his life. He listened because that's what men do when the world tells them they can still have what they walked away from. Naomi did not raise her voice during those weeks. She did not cry in front of anyone if she could help it. She read. She asked questions. She fed the children and brushed the girls' hair, and reminded them that kindness is not weakness, and that they were allowed to be strong without being hard. She talked to God in the kitchen when the house was asleep, not with fancy words, but with the plain language of the tired and the hopeful. She told the truth, even the parts that hurt, and the truth laid down a floor under her feet so she could keep walking. Which is how she stood in that courtroom with a pen in her hand and a photograph on the table. A photograph that dared to rewrite the history everyone had just agreed on. Thunder rolled again. Outside, the sky changed its mind about blue. The navy-suited woman hovered 2 steps away, eyes on the door where Miles had slipped through. Security murmured into radios. The judge looked at Naomi as if they were 2 people alone in a crisis. The room's noise fell into the low hum of something both holy and dangerous. Naomi folded the photograph and slid it into the inner pocket of her blazer. She turned to Micah and Maya. "Stay with Miss Parker," she said softly, and the children nodded, trustworthy and terrified. Ms. Parker, the paralegal who had given the kids strawberry candies before the hearing, squeezed their hands. Darius took a step toward Naomi. "I'll go find him," he said, urgency cracking his voice. "Please, let me help." Naomi looked at him and saw 2 men in his one body. The boy who walked her home from choir, and the man who left a ring on a table. Selene saw the same thing and reached for Darius's sleeve, a reflex born of years of getting her way. "Don't," Selene said, voice low. "This is exactly how people lose focus." Darius shook off her hand. For the first time in a long time, he looked like the boy again. He turned toward the door, and then Naomi's phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. 4 words, tiny and electric. "I have your son." The attached photo showed a hand, just a hand, resting on a child's shoulder. The sleeve was navy blue, the cuff neat, the skin light brown. Miles wasn't in the frame. Neither was the face of the person who sent it. Only the suggestion of control, of possession, of a game beginning. Naomi lifted her eyes, the world narrowing to a point that could slice. Selene stared at the phone as if it were a mirror. Darius froze, halfway to the door. In the center of the room, the settlement papers lay open, numbers printed in polite ink. The kind of ink that can't say anything about missing children. Naomi took a breath as the storm found its rhythm outside, a steady hammer on the city's tired roofs. She closed her fist around the phone and looked at the judge. "Your Honor," she said, each word a step up a steep hill. "This court may need a recess." And somewhere in the courthouse, a small boy's voice rose. Miles, calling the name that held his world steady. "Mama!" The cry echoed through the corridor like a bell. Naomi moved. She did not see the look that passed between Selene and the navy-suited woman. She did not see the way Darius's hands shook. She didn't notice the reporter who whispered, "Oh my God," or the clerk who crossed herself. She ran for the door, the photograph burning against her heart and the message on her phone lighting the way toward a truth sharp enough to cut through every comfort and every lie. As she reached the hallway, another text arrived from the same unknown number, 5 words this time, small and cruel. "Ask who forged the deed." Naomi stopped cold, then lifted her eyes to the hallway shadows, where footsteps were already fading. Behind her, thunder rolled again, closer now, and the courtroom doors swung shut with a sound like a verdict. Naomi burst into the corridor as the courtroom doors hissed shut behind her. The marble floor, slick with the tracks of wet shoes, reflected the cold light of storm-gray windows. Security moved in a practiced wave, hands to radios, eyes scanning the hall like fishermen reading water. She heard the faintest echo, Miles's voice, and ran toward it. "Ma'am, you can't—" She didn't wait for the deputy's sentence. "That's my son," she said, the words ironed flat by fear. She barreled past the sign directing visitors to probate and civil records and pushed through a set of glass doors into the main atrium. The storm had turned the skylight into a drum, rain blasting a rhythm that set her heart to sprint. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down while running. Bring the deed to the south stairwell. Alone. 2 minutes. Naomi cut hard right. The south stairwell was the old one, the one that still smelled faintly of dust and oil soap. She gripped the handle and pulled. The door fought her, then groaned open, metal scraping metal. "Miles?" she called into the cool echo. Only the hum of building air answered. Her shoes clapped on concrete steps as she descended one flight, then another. On the landing between floors, a yellow caution sign lay on its side, forgotten. Naomi remembered the trembling of Miles's lower lip when he was small, and thought of every time she'd promised never to let him be alone in the world. Promises are easy when danger is hypothetical. They are heavy when danger texts you a time limit. Another message. Don't be foolish. The boy is fine, for now. She stopped and pressed her palm against the wall until the spinning in her head eased. Fine. For now. People who were truly confident didn't add for now. That tiny phrase carried the shaky weight of bluff. She lifted her phone and replied with hands that wanted to shake. Proof he's with you. No answer. She listened again. A soft sound drifted up from below. A sneaker scuff. Or maybe the ghost of one. Naomi went down another flight and stopped. A navy sleeve flashed and vanished around the corner below. Not a full body, just a clean triangle of cloth, a suggestion. "Stop!" she called, voice ricocheting. "If you touch my son—" A new voice, pitched low and calm, floated up. "Mrs. Brooks, step into the light. No sudden moves." The silhouette that edged into view wore a navy jacket. The face stayed above the rectangle of emergency light, where shadows made everyone look like a story you didn't want to hear. Naomi raised both hands slightly. "I brought the deed," she said. The photo and the copy of the recorded page heated her pocket. "But if you thought I'd bring it alone—" A second shape stirred in the darkness, and then a third. She wasn't alone with one person. She was standing at the top of a triangle. "Phone's on the floor," the first voice said. "Kick it down 2 steps." "Mrs. Brooks," another voice rang out behind her. "Naomi, don't!" She turned. The navy-suited woman from the courtroom stood at the stairwell door, hair damp with rain, eyes clear. Her right hand held a badge wallet open, the kind of leather rectangle Naomi associated with movies. Inside, a gold shield, State Comptroller's Office, Special Investigations. "You were never supposed to be alone," the woman said, stepping in slowly, palms open. "I'm Ariel Ajayi. I brought you that envelope. I need you to trust me now." Naomi kept her phone angled just out of sight. "Someone texted from your number type," she said. "Navy sleeve. A hand on my son's shoulder." "My suit is navy," Ariel said. "Half the building is navy. And I don't send ransom notes." The text came from a prepaid. "We triangulated it to this side, but signals bounce in old buildings." "Put the phone down," the low voice repeated below. Ariel didn't flinch. "No, you put your hands where I can see them," she said, authority snapping in, crisp as a folded shirt. She moved her badge higher. "State Comptroller, this stairwell has 2 cameras. One faces this landing. Ask yourself if you really want to be seen doing this." Silence. Then a muffled curse. Naomi's mind raced. Ariel Ajayi. The name fit the careful way the woman carried herself. Nigerian rhythm quieted by years of American rooms. But if she was a state investigator, why had she whispered about Miles being tagged? Why deliver the envelope like a spy in a TV show? Ariel answered the thought Naomi hadn't voiced. Selene's people have friends in low places. And lower down. We've been investigating forged transfers for months. Old deeds, notarized by paid hands, all around the river. Your father's signature appears on 2 of them when he was medically incapable. I couldn't hand you that in open court without telegraphing our whole case. Naomi's throat tightened. So, you slipped me evidence and a warning. Because I intercepted chatter that someone might try to create leverage if you refused to rubber-stamp the settlement, Ariel said. You walked in strong. You asked the right question. You made the right enemies. It's a child, Naomi said softly. He's not a chess piece. I know, Ariel said, which is why we don't negotiate here. Phones, the voice below insisted, angrier now. Last chance. Ariel's eyes cut to Naomi's. Do you trust me? She asked. Yes or no? Now. Naomi wanted to say, who in this city has earned that answer? The judge with a pen? The man who left? The woman who thinks everything is a business model? But the truth sat in front of her in plain clothes. If the investigator was lying, Naomi was already lost. If she was telling the truth, there was a narrow bridge back to her son. Yes, Naomi said. Ariel nodded once. Then we follow procedure. She turned her head slightly, as if talking to the stairwell, and spoke in a voice built to carry without shouting. This is Special Investigator Ajayi, with the State Comptroller's Office. The cameras are hot. Security is on the way. You will place your hands on the rail and step into the light. If a child is with you, you will release him now. A pause. Naomi heard a clatter, like metal hitting concrete. A flashlight beam jittered, then steadied. A man in a navy windbreaker, not a suit, stepped up 2 stairs, hands open. His hair lay wet against his temple. His eyes jittered, never landing. He looked like a courier who had been told the package bit. He's down 1 landing, the man said, swallowing. Kid's fine. Wasn't my idea. Ariel's left hand dipped, and Naomi saw the outline of a holster. Slide your phone to me, Ariel said coolly. Then back away, left side against the wall. A second man shifted in the shadows below. He held out both empty hands, as if they could erase the way he'd been a shadow a moment earlier. We're not here to hurt anybody, he said. Just wanted to talk business. The lady in the courtroom plays rough, so we... Naomi didn't wait. She moved past Ariel, down the steps, heart in her mouth. Miles? She called softly. Baby? Mom. His voice came back, small and high. On the next landing, tucked behind the bend, he stood pressed to the wall, cheeks wet, fists balled. A navy blazer, the school kind they wore to church on certain Sundays, was folded on his arm like he had tried to carry a piece of safety with him. Naomi fell to her knees and hugged him so tight he squawked. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? She touched his face, the way mothers learn to read their children's temperature in a thumbprint. Miles shook his head. A lady said you needed me, he whispered. She said we were going to surprise you. Then the man grabbed my shoulder and told me to be quiet. Naomi's stomach dropped. What lady? He pointed up. The one from court. The one with the pretty badge. Ariel. Naomi looked up the steps toward her. Ariel had the first man face down against the rail, reciting a practiced warning. 2 deputies poured in through the door above, rein on their shoulders. They moved like a machine coming alive. What lady? Naomi asked again, quieter. Miles tapped his temple, trying to remember perfectly. Different one, he said after a moment. Her badge was pretty, but she didn't show it long. Her hair was smooth like glass. She smiled like a teacher, and said her name was Ms. A. Ariel's head snapped toward them. Ms. A? She looked suddenly younger and older at once. What did she look like, Miles? Was her jacket navy? Dark green, he said. Dark like the chalkboard. Ariel exhaled. Of course, she murmured. She changed jackets. Who is she? Naomi asked. An auditor on paper, Ariel said. A fixer in practice. Real name, Ariel Ajayi. We've been trying to catch her handwriting on the notarizations, but she keeps a finger off the glass. She must have watched me approach you. She must have staged the text to look like me. Security cuffed the first man. The second took a step down and did something smarter than talking. He sat. A deputy approached, collected phones, and scanned the landing with a small device that beeped politely at hidden metal. The stairwell, suddenly full of official bodies, felt safer and smaller. Ariel crouched on the landing and looked Miles in the eyes. You were very brave, she said. I'm sorry you were scared. You did nothing wrong. Miles nodded, trying to be tough. I didn't cry, he said, which was not true, but Naomi didn't correct him. He would have that victory if he needed it. Okay, Ariel said to Naomi. Back upstairs. We do this the right way, with lights, with a record. You keep the photo and the copy. We will hold the originals under seal until a judge authorizes release. Do not sign anything. Naomi swallowed. They're going to say I'm making it up to stall, she said. They'll say I'm greedy, that I want a bigger number. They will say anything that works, Ariel said simply. But truth walks with its own stride. The settlement number is the least interesting part of this story now. As they climbed, Naomi felt Miles's small hand sweat in hers. At the top, the door swung wide. The atrium seemed to exhale as they stepped into it. People had gathered in a loose ring like bystanders at a street performance they didn't want to admit they were watching. Darius stood just outside the ring. Rain had flattened his hair and soaked the shoulders of his suit. When he saw Miles, his face changed. Some men's faces turn into stone under stress. His turned back into the boy who had once run a mile to bring Naomi a phone he thought she forgot. He moved without asking permission and crouched. Miles, he whispered. I'm sorry. Are you okay? Miles looked up at Naomi. She nodded. He stepped into his father's hug without full trust, but without fear either. Darius closed his eyes. For one small second, the storm and the room and the law disappeared. Selene stood beside a decorative ficus near the elevators, a perfect picture of a person not interfering. Her smile, when it appeared, was slow and almost kind. She had changed jackets, too, white now, tailored to advertise calm. Thank God, she said, as if God had heard her personal request. Children are our future, aren't they? Then quietly, to Darius, there are cameras everywhere, my dear. He straightened as if scolded. The spell broke. Ariel stepped into the center of the atrium so her voice could carry. Your Honor, she called toward the court officers now pooling at the doorway. We request that this proceeding recess formally. There's an active investigation into recorded land transfers, including the Brooks deed underlying several of the assets discussed today. The judge, who had moved to the threshold like a man reluctant to enter someone else's kitchen, adjusted his glasses. On what basis? Probable cause of forgery and fraud, Ariel answered. We will present affidavits. We have a vulnerable party, a minor, who was targeted to influence proceedings. Noise. Not shouts, not yet. More like the swell of a storm pushing into a room under the door. Reporters raised phones. A bailiff barked orders. The twins pressed close to Ms. Parker, eyes wide. Naomi felt the sting of 100 eyes and chose to look at none of them. She slipped her arm around Miles and drew all three children into a cluster. "Look at me," she said, voice low. "Breathe with me, in and out." They obeyed because they had practiced breathing together on hard nights. In, out. Ariel lowered her voice to a thread meant only for Naomi. "Two things we need from you," she said. "First, do not let anyone frame this as money versus morals. This is truth versus theft. Second, think about whose signature could pass for your father's after the stroke. Someone who practiced. Someone who had access to those papers." Naomi's mind flashed images like cards in a magician's hand. The hospital room with the hiss of oxygen, the clipboard that floated in and out, the nurse with the soft voice, the lawyer cousin who came to help and left with a shrug, Darius's mentor from the warehouse who always over-explained and underwrote checks, Selene's in-house notary with the too bright pen. Her eyes landed on Darius. He was watching her with a guilt-shaped softness. Beneath it, a glint of something harder, fear or calculation. He had signed so many papers in those months. He had practiced pens that weren't his. He had sat at tables where signatures formed the staircase by which people climbed. She couldn't think that thought fully. Not yet. A hand touched her elbow. Auntie Vera, who had appeared like the weather. Naomi didn't even ask how. Auntie moved exactly as she always did, as if kitchens and courthouses were built from the same material, and she knew where every shelf was. "I took a bus," she said, voice calm. "I brought snacks. These children need food, and I need my niece not to faint." Naomi almost laughed. The normal in the middle of the wild has a way of saving you. "Mrs. Brooks," Selene said, drifting closer with that practiced, "let me be the white flag look. This has spiraled. Let's regain control. If you sign the current settlement, I can personally guarantee—" Ariel stepped between them so smoothly it felt choreographed. "No," she said, professional and final. "No more hallway deals." Naomi's phone vibrated again. For one mad second, she wanted to throw it into the fountain. She glanced instead. A single sentence from an unknown number, different from the first anonymous messages. "We should talk before the cameras find my name." Attached, a picture. Not of a child, of a signature practice sheet. Dozens of Olsen Brooks, written in a slow, careful hand, trying to learn someone else's rhythm. At the bottom, part of a signature curved into a familiar shape. Not Olsen's, not even her mother's. It was a flourish Naomi had watched 1,000 times at the kitchen table over utility bills and field trip forms. Her own. She felt the blood leave her face. Because only one person had ever teased her in love about that little curve she made when she signed Naomi, the curve she'd picked up as a girl trying to copy her father. Only one person had borrowed her hand over and over and joked, "Teach me to sign like a Brooks, so the bank thinks I'm family." Darius. He looked up and saw the change in her. He took a step, then another. "Naomi?" he asked, voice raw. "What is it?" She held the phone so only Ariel could see the photo. Ariel's jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked to Darius, then back to Naomi. "Don't react," she whispered. "Not here. Not yet." Selene's smile finally cracked, the first honest movement on her face all morning. "What is it?" she asked lightly, as if they shared a secret. Naomi put the phone away. Her hand was steady now. The steadiness frightened her. The judge lifted his gavel to formally declare a recess. Before it struck, a new voice cut across the atrium, carrying an accent that did not apologize for itself. "Excuse me," the man said, holding up a laminated ID as he wove through the ring of onlookers. He wore the uniform of a private hospital, St. Bridget's. "Is Mrs. Naomi Brooks here? We need you to come with us immediately. It's about the man who notarized your father's papers." "Who are you?" Ariel asked sharply, stepping in front of him. The man slowed, eyes darting to the shield at her hip. "I'm a charge nurse at St. Bridget's," he said. "I've been looking for you since yesterday. The man, Mr. Pike, is in our ICU. He asked for Naomi by name. He says he wants to confess." The word hung in the air like bright cloth snapping in wind. "Confess what?" Naomi asked, heart pounding. The nurse swallowed. "He says he didn't just notarize your father's deed," he said. "He says he forged it. And he says he did it on the instruction of someone you trust." Darius's eyes closed for a fraction of a second that could have been a blink or a prayer. Ariel's face didn't move, but her hands did. One lifted her phone to her ear, the other made the smallest stay motion Naomi had ever seen. Selene's pleasant mask slid back into place, too smooth and too fast. Miles clutched Naomi's coat. The twins pressed closer. A bolt of lightning whitened the skylight. Thunder followed like a rolling drum. "Take me to him," Naomi said. The nurse nodded. "The ambulance is outside," he said. "He says it has to be today." Ariel held Naomi's gaze for one beat, then two. "I will ride with you," she said. "No detours, no side doors. Selene and Mr. Cole, you will remain here under court officer's supervision." Selene smiled, all manners and ice. "Of course," she said. Darius looked from Naomi to the children. "Please," he whispered, cracking again. "Let me come. If it's my fault, I'll—" Naomi did not answer him. She turned to Auntie Vera and spoke in the voice you use when the world is louder than you are. "Take them home," she said. "Lock the door. If I don't call in 2 hours, call Pastor Green and the news, and anybody who ever owed you a favor." Auntie nodded. She had never looked more like family. "We'll be fine," she said. "Now go get our truth." Naomi took one step toward the doors, then another, as the building's breath shifted with her. Her phone vibrated once more. She glanced down at the screen without breaking stride. A new message, no attachment this time. "You are walking into a trap you prayed to avoid. Ask the nurse who paid his overtime." A chill rose up her spine that had nothing to do with the rain. Naomi looked up at the waiting ambulance through the sheets of water outside the courthouse and, for the first time since she'd refused to sign, hesitated. Ariel's hand landed on her shoulder. Steady, warm, real. "We verify in the lobby," she said calmly. "We check his badge. We call his unit. We don't get into vehicles we didn't summon." The nurse's smile stiffened, just a little. "Ma'am," he said, the kindness in his tone bending toward insistence. "Time matters." "It always does," Naomi answered, and in her voice there was no quake now, only the steel that living had laid down in layers. They stepped toward the doors. A court officer pulled one open, and the storm spoke in 1,000 drops. On the street, the ambulance idled, in the puddle beside its tire. Reflected upside down, Naomi saw a face in the passenger seat, hair smooth as glass, jacket dark green. The woman's eyes flicked up and met Naomi's through the rain-slashed reflection. She smiled. Then she lifted a phone and, without looking away, tapped send. Naomi's phone vibrated. One sentence lit the screen, clean and merciless. "If you get in, you will never sign anything again." Rain battered the courthouse steps like a second verdict. Naomi stood under the building's stone archway, the city's stormlight reflecting in her eyes. Half defiance, half disbelief. The ambulance idled in front of her, red lights swirling in slow, hypnotic circles, painting the puddles, blood, and gold. Inside, through the streaked windshield, she saw the dark green-jacketed woman, Ms. Almira Abayomi, smiling faintly, tapping her phone with casual precision. The nurse sat beside her, rigid, hands gripping a clipboard like a weapon of routine. Ariel Ajayi moved first. She stepped off the curb, hand hovering near her sidearm, but not drawing. "Ma'am," she called over the rain, her tone balanced between patience and warning. "If that's your ambulance, you'll have no objection to me verifying your credentials." The nurse leaned out the driver's window. "Verification wastes time," he said. "Mr. Pike's vitals are dropping. We lose minutes. He dies." Ariel kept walking, her shoes splashing deliberately. "Then you won't mind if I call St. Bridget's myself." She lifted her phone and dialed, voice calm but clipped. "This is Investigator Ajayi, badge 4521. Confirm whether a patient named Thomas Pike is in ICU and if you have an outbound ambulance assigned to Fulton County Courthouse." Static. Rain. The hum of an engine idling. Then a voice through the receiver. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We have a Thomas Pike, but he's been deceased since early this morning, and no ambulance was dispatched." Naomi's heart tripped over itself. Ariel looked up slowly, eyes locking on the woman in the passenger seat. "Step out of the vehicle," she ordered. Almira Abayomi smiled wider, her teeth small and perfect. "You're late, Ajayi," she said, the rain swallowing her voice halfway to Naomi's ears. Then she flicked the phone toward the dashboard and shouted, "Go!" The engine howled. Ariel lunged sideways, yanking Naomi back, just as the ambulance fishtailed through the flood-slick street. Tires shrieked. Horns blared. The red and white blur surged down the avenue, splashing walls of rainwater across parked cars. Naomi stumbled against Ariel's arm. "They're running!" "I see them!" Ariel barked into her radio. "Unit 5, intercept a stolen ambulance heading south on Peachtree. 2 suspects, female driver, male accomplice posing as medical personnel. Engage non-lethal pursuit only." But Naomi didn't hear the rest. Something else was ringing. Her phone. One new message, unsigned, same cryptic style as before. "Let them go. Follow the paper, not the car." Her throat tightened. She showed it to Ariel. "Someone's watching us," Naomi whispered. "They knew I'd chase." Ariel scanned the roofs and lampposts, then slipped the phone into a Faraday pouch from her coat. "Whoever's feeding you intel wants control of the narrative." "We follow procedure. We go back inside." Naomi's gaze stayed fixed on the receding ambulance lights until they dissolved into the gray distance. Then she turned, rain sliding down her cheeks in lines that looked almost deliberate. "Procedure," she repeated softly. "That's what killed my father's signature. Someone's procedure." Ariel didn't answer. She just guided Naomi up the courthouse steps, one steady hand at her back. Inside, the atrium buzzed like a beehive cracked open. Reporters jostled for angles. Darius stood near a marble column, jaw tight, talking too fast to Selene, who remained disturbingly serene. Auntie Vera had gathered the children into a corner with Ms. Parker, feeding them crackers from a plastic bag and whispering prayers disguised as stories. When Naomi re-entered, every eye turned. Selene's smile slid into place as if on cue. "So dramatic," she murmured. "Is the confession postponed?" Ariel faced her squarely. "The man is dead. The ambulance was fake. Someone staged a retrieval to intercept Mrs. Brooks." The room erupted. Cameras clicked. A reporter shouted, "Are you saying there's foul play tied to the Brooks settlement?" Ariel ignored them and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, I'm requesting protective custody for Mrs. Brooks. and her children pending investigation. Selene's tone was honeyed and poisonous. Protective custody? Investigator, you make it sound like my fiancé's ex-wife is some kind of national security threat. Naomi stepped forward, eyes sharp. No, Selene. The threat is whoever forged my father's hand while he was dying, and whoever's willing to kidnap a child to keep that secret buried. Selene tilted her head. You're accusing me? I'm not accusing, Naomi said evenly. I'm observing. You benefit the most if I stay quiet. Darius moved between them, palms out. Naomi, stop, please. Selene didn't forge anything. Naomi turned on him, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. Did you? The question cracked through the room. For a heartbeat, Darius looked like a man whose language had abandoned him. Then he shook his head slowly, eyes glistening. Naomi, I signed documents. Yes, legal ones, after your father passed. But Selene's people handled the paperwork. I never saw any forgery. Ariel's brows lifted. You authorized transfers? He nodded. Minor ones, land evaluations. I thought it was routine. Naomi cut in. Routine? Darius, you transferred my father's estate to Adeyemi Holdings, Selene's shell company. The same name on that forged deed. Selene's mask cracked, just for a second. Watch your tone. No, Naomi said, voice steady now. For years, you told me we were too small to matter. You left for better air, better people. Now the land you signed away makes a billion-dollar energy grid, and suddenly you're kneeling in court begging to help. The words hit like rain on tin, sharp, relentless. Darius's voice trembled. Naomi, you don't understand. I understand you forged a future that wasn't yours, she said. And you did it using my signature. Gasps rippled. The judge's gavel came down once, but no one really heard it. Selene's calm returned in an instant. This is beneath the dignity of the court, she said coolly. Your Honor, if this woman has accusations, she should take them to the proper venue, not the court of gossip. Ariel held up her phone, displaying the photograph of the signature sheet Naomi had received. We will, starting now. Forensic handwriting analysts from the state lab are already en route. Selene's gaze hardened. You're making a mistake, investigator. My family's influence ends, Ariel interrupted, at the border of the law. For the first time, Selene's composure faltered. She turned to Darius as if silently commanding him to intervene, but his shoulders had slumped. The weight of something unspoken pressed down until he whispered, Selene, tell them what we did. Her head whipped toward him, eyes wide. Don't. He met her stare. They deserved the truth. The air seemed to still. Reporters leaned in. Naomi didn't move, afraid that any motion would break whatever fragile spell of honesty had finally touched him. Darius took a slow breath. Your father's land wasn't worthless. He knew about the solar deal before the stroke. He wanted to keep it community-owned. Selene's firm approached me, said if I could convince him to transfer it temporarily, we'd get dividends forever. But he fell ill before he could sign. Her people. They said they'd help finalize. I didn't know they were forging his signature, Naomi. I swear I didn't. Selene hissed under her breath. You weak fool. Ariel moved closer. And the signature that matches Mrs. Brooks's? Darius looked at the floor. They needed a witness signature that looked familial. They asked me for a sample of Naomi's handwriting. He swallowed hard. I had old bills, her letters. They copied it. Naomi stared at him as the truth landed in slow motion, cold and final. You handed them my hand. I thought it was temporary, Darius cried. Selene promised we'd restore everything after the deal closed. Selene's voice rose, sharp as broken glass. We were building something bigger than your little kitchen table business, Naomi. You got lucky the tide turned your way. Don't pretend morality when you're dining on its spoils. Ariel signaled to two deputies. Ms. Selene Adeyemi, you're being detained for questioning regarding fraud, forgery, and attempted coercion of a witness. Selene laughed, a brittle, too high sound. Do you know who my father is? Yes, Ariel said. And he'll be next. The deputies stepped forward. Selene didn't resist. She just turned her head toward Naomi, eyes gleaming. You think you've won? You don't even know who financed your first jars of stew. Naomi frowned. What are you talking about? Selene smiled faintly. Ask your sweet Aunt Vera, who paid her mortgage when the bank came calling. Ask who arranged that community grant. You were never poor, Naomi. You were an investment. The words hit harder than thunder. Naomi turned toward Auntie Vera, who had gone still, her hands tightening on the children's shoulders. Vera, Naomi whispered. What does she mean? Auntie Vera didn't speak immediately. Her eyes glistened, not with guilt, but with an old, tired sadness. Later, she said softly, inside, away from these eyes. But Selene laughed again, low and cruel. No need for later, Auntie. Tell her how you cashed my father's checks. Ariel raised a hand. Enough, she said to Selene. You'll have counsel. Selene smirked. You'll have chaos. The deputies led her away, cameras flashing like lightning. The courthouse emptied in waves. Reporters ushered out, officers dispersing, murmurs fading into rain. Naomi stood near the fountain, her reflection breaking apart with every ripple. Darius sat on a bench, head in hands. The children clung to Auntie Vera, who hummed a hymn older than any of them. Ariel approached quietly. We'll move you to a safe location tonight. Tomorrow, we start tracing the funding Selene mentioned. If your aunt was manipulated, we'll prove it. Naomi nodded, voice hollow. She's the only reason my kids ate. I need to hear her truth before anyone takes her in. Ariel placed a small recorder on the table beside her. Then record it. Every word. And Naomi, she met her eyes. Don't ignore that message. Someone inside their circle is trying to help you. Figure out who before they switch sides. Naomi pocketed the recorder. And if they already have? Ariel's gaze turned toward the storm-lit windows. Then you'll know by morning. People who trade in secrets never sleep long. Lightning flashed again, brighter this time. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed and faded. Naomi turned to her aunt. We're going home. Auntie Vera hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, child. Home is where the ghosts wait to talk. That night, the storm followed them down the highway like an uninvited escort. Naomi drove in silence, the children asleep in the back seat. Auntie Vera's hands folded in her lap. The city lights thinned to long ribbons of gold and blue. At a red light, Naomi's phone buzzed again. This time, only 3 words. She's not lying. She stared at the screen until the light turned green. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely a whisper. Auntie, tell me what you did. Vera exhaled, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I took the money, Naomi, she said quietly. But not from Selene's father. From someone else. Someone who said they were acting for a trust your father set up before his stroke. Naomi's pulse quickened. A trust? He never told me. He couldn't, Vera said. They gagged him with papers and false hope. But he left a clause, child. One signature missing, one name erased. And if you find it—" She turned, her eyes catching the passing streetlight glow. "You'll find the real owner of that billion-dollar empire." The thunder rolled again, closer now, and in the distance Naomi could swear she saw headlights following. She tightened her grip on the wheel. The past wasn't done with her yet. Chapter 4. The highway stretched like a dark ribbon through the storm, the rain easing into a drizzle that made the asphalt gleam under the sparse streetlights. The wipers kept a slow rhythm, steady as Naomi's heart tried to find its own. Inside the car, the children slept, their heads resting against each other, innocent faces glowing faintly in the amber light of the dashboard. Auntie Vera's eyes, though tired, stayed open, fixed on the blurred horizon ahead. Naomi broke the silence. "Auntie," she said softly, "start from the beginning. No more half-truths. No more protecting me." Vera exhaled through her nose, slow and long. "I was never protecting you, child. I was protecting your father's wish." Naomi frowned. "His wish?" Vera nodded. "You think your father was just a small-town man with a pepper farm? But before his stroke, Olson Brooks was more than that. He was part of a private cooperative, a group of local farmers who pooled land under one umbrella, hoping to build community power plants with solar energy. They called it the Seven Hands Alliance. He was one of the founding seven." Naomi's grip on the wheel tightened. "I never heard of that." "They kept it quiet," Vera said. "Too many vultures circling. But your father trusted one man to manage the legal side. His old friend, Thomas Pike. Yes, the same man who forged those papers." Naomi's eyes widened. "Pike was his friend?" "Until greed ate him alive," Vera said bitterly. "When Olson fell ill, Pike started meeting with outside investors, including Selene's father. They offered him a way to streamline ownership. Your father refused. He said, 'If we sell light, it must still reach our people.' But Pike, he didn't like that answer. So he forged Olson's signature and transferred the deed. When your father found out, it was too late. His blood pressure spiked. That stroke wasn't from bad diet, Naomi. It was from betrayal." The windshield blurred under the drizzle. Naomi swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me all this before?" Vera looked down at her folded hands. "Because I thought I could fix it quietly. I thought Pike would reverse it once I paid him off." Naomi shot her a look. "Paid him off? With what money?" Vera hesitated. "Your father's contingency fund. He had hidden savings in an offshore account. Money meant for the children, for emergencies. But when I reached Pike, he was already in debt to Selene's people. He said the only way to keep the deal from becoming permanent was to show proof of local interest, someone in the family continuing the work. So I used the money to start you off. The jars, the first market permits, the license for the sauce brand. He said that would prove continuity of ownership. I never imagined it would grow into this." Naomi's heart pounded. "So the business that built my success came from the same stolen fortune they used to destroy us?" Vera nodded. "God has a strange way of turning ashes into fire." The words hung heavy in the air. Naomi slowed the car as a flash of lightning revealed a bend in the road. "You said earlier there was a clause, something about a missing signature?" Vera straightened. "Yes. The cooperative agreement. Your father's copy was missing one signature, his own, on the final trust transfer. Pike forged it on the second version, but your father's original unsigned document still holds legal weight. It's proof the property was never lawfully conveyed. That document can overturn the entire Sunspire contract." Naomi's pulse quickened. "Where is it?" Vera turned her gaze toward the dark fields outside the window. Buried, literally, behind the old pepper farm, under the big mango tree where your father used to pray every morning. Naomi stared through the rain, her voice low. That land is Sunspire's now. It's a restricted construction site. Yes, Vera said, which means we have to go tonight, before daylight. Naomi pulled the car to the shoulder, breathing hard. Auntie, that's trespassing. Then so be it, Vera snapped suddenly, eyes burning. We've obeyed the law long enough while thieves used it as armor. It's time the law met the truth face to face. Naomi looked back at her children sleeping in the rear seat, Micah's hand resting protectively over Maya's, Miles clutching his stuffed toy. Her jaw clenched. We'll go, but I'm not dragging the kids into this. Vera nodded firmly. Drop them at my cousin Sade's house. She's up in Riverdale, quiet neighborhood. Nobody will look for them there. An hour later, the car rolled to a stop in front of a modest bungalow. Warm porch light, curtains drawn, faint gospel music humming inside. Sade, tall, wide-shouldered, with a scarf tied around her braids, met them at the door. Vera, you said it was urgent, she said, hugging Naomi quickly. Lord, these babies have grown, Naomi explained briefly, her voice clipped. Please, just keep them inside till morning. Don't open for anyone. If you see a black SUV or a white van near the house, call this number. She pressed Ariel's card into Sadie's hand. Sade frowned. You're scaring me. Good, Naomi said. Fear keeps us careful. She kissed each child in turn. Miles stirred awake, mumbling, Mommy, where are you going? Naomi brushed his hair gently. To bring Grandpa's truth home, baby. Go back to sleep. He clung to her sleeve for a moment, then let go. 1:42 a.m. The old Brooks pepper farm was unrecognizable. What had once been rows of fertile red earth and green pepper shrubs was now a sea of glass and steel. Sunspire's solar panels stretched across the field like mirrors, catching the storm's glow in eerie blue reflections. The main gate bore a warning sign, Private property, no entry. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Naomi parked far from the road, cutting the headlights. The two women stepped into the mud, flashlights in hand, wind snapping at their coats. Vera pointed toward the far end of the field. That's where the mango tree used to stand. Naomi squinted through the dark. The tree was gone, replaced by a small control shed and a web of metal fencing. Only the mound where its roots once were broke the symmetry of the field. They climbed the fence, careful not to trip the motion lights. Rain pattered against the panels like whispers. Naomi's flashlight caught a shimmer, a bronze plaque half buried near the mound. Brooks Field, dedicated to clean energy for a new generation. Naomi's jaw tightened. They took everything, even his name. Not everything, Vera murmured, kneeling by the mound. The earth remembers what men forget. They dug, hands, shovel, even the heel of Naomi's boot. The soil was soft from rain. Within minutes, Naomi's fingers struck something hard. She brushed away the mud and pulled out a weatherproof tin box, rusted at the edges. Inside, a sealed envelope. A faint oil stain marked the corner, and across the front, her father's handwriting, firm despite age. For Naomi, when the world forgets who owns the light. Tears burned Naomi's eyes. She opened the envelope carefully. Inside lay a document wrapped in clear plastic, the Seven Hands Alliance Charter, and a small, silver flash drive. What's this? Naomi whispered. Vera's eyes widened. That's new. Your father didn't mention any drive. Naomi turned it over. Etched into the metal were the words, Truth lives in data. Suddenly, floodlights exploded around them. Hands where we can see them, a voice barked through a megaphone. You're trespassing on federal property. Naomi froze. Vera gasped. Two security trucks screeched to a stop nearby, headlights cutting through the rain. 6 men in Sunspire uniforms jumped out, flashlights aimed at their faces. "Drop the bag!" one shouted. Naomi clutched the envelope to her chest. "This is my father's land," she shouted back. "You're the trespassers." The lead guard approached, his voice tight. "Ma'am, the company owns this site. You're interfering with protected infrastructure. Put your hands—" Then his radio crackled. "Stand down. They're with corporate." A black SUV rolled up behind the security trucks. The passenger door opened, and out stepped Darius. Naomi's heart dropped. "You followed us?" He looked drenched and exhausted. "I had to," he said. "Selene called from holding before they took her phone. She said you'd go digging for the claws. I came to protect you." Vera snorted. "Protect or retrieve?" Darius's gaze darted to the envelope in Naomi's hand. "You don't understand. That document could destroy everything, Naomi. Sunspire's board, Kita Foods, the cooperatives, billions in lawsuits. They'll come for you next." Naomi stepped back, rain streaking her face. "Then let them." Darius reached toward her. "Naomi, please, I swear I didn't know they'd hurt anyone. But the drive, that flash drive, it's not just records, it's access. It controls the solar grid's entire data system. You're holding the master key." Naomi's breath caught. "What?" He nodded. "Your father was building it before he died. A control hub that kept corporate hands from manipulating output or siphoning profits. He encoded ownership into the grid. That's what Selene's people wanted all along. The one person who holds that drive can redirect the power supply. Literally." Vera's eyes widened. "Then your father didn't just fight for land. He fought for control." Naomi's voice trembled with realization. "And they forged his signature to steal it." "Exactly," Darius said. "Selene's family used that fake deed to claim the license and override the protocol. Without that flash drive, they couldn't access full control. But now you have it, and they know." As if on cue, another vehicle approached. Sleek, black, tinted windows. 2 men in suits stepped out, faces unreadable. One of them called out, "Mrs. Brooks, we represent the Adeyemi Energy Consortium. Hand over the drive and document, and this ends peacefully." Naomi clutched the items tighter. "Or what?" The man's voice was smooth. "Or you'll force us to take them." A new sound split the air. Police sirens. Blue lights cut through the darkness. Ariel's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Fulton County Special Investigations. Step away from Mrs. Brooks." The Adeyemi men exchanged a glance and retreated toward their car. Within seconds, they were gone into the rain. Ariel ran toward Naomi, soaked and breathless. "Are you all right?" Naomi nodded, shaking. "We found it, Ariel. The claws. And something more. A drive. My father's master key." Ariel's eyes widened. "Then we need to move, now. Once they know you have that, you'll be hunted, not sued." Naomi looked at Darius one last time. "You said you came to protect me. If that's true, then prove it, by letting me finish what my father started." Darius looked like a man drowning in his own past. He nodded slowly. "I'll help you get it to safety." But Ariel's eyes narrowed. "He's coming under custody. Too many lies already." Naomi stepped between them. "No, he's my liability, and my witness. He comes with me." The rain picked up again, harder, louder, as the sirens faded into the distance. Naomi looked down at the muddy envelope and the gleaming flash drive resting in her palm. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, "When the world forgets who owns the light." She looked up, lightning flashing across the panels of the solar field. We remind them. Audience engagement. Prompt: if you were Naomi, would you risk everything, even your safety, to expose the truth behind a billion-dollar fraud? Where are you watching from tonight? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for the next gripping chapter of Unaware We'd One Day Become Billionaires. The rain had stopped by the time Naomi, Auntie Vera, Darius, and Ariel arrived at the safe house, a quiet bungalow tucked behind rows of old oak trees on the outskirts of Atlanta. The moon pressed faint light through thin clouds, silvering the gravel path. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and warm tea, the kind of place where secrets could breathe without being overheard. Ariel locked the door behind them and pulled down the blinds. "We're secure for now," she said. "No one outside this room knows where you are." Naomi placed the weathered envelope and flash drive carefully on the kitchen table. The items seemed to hum with quiet weight, two small relics holding the power to unravel billion-dollar lies. Auntie Vera sat down, her knees trembling slightly. "God forgive us," she murmured, "for digging up the dead and waking the greedy." Naomi gave her hand a squeeze, then looked at Ariel. "What's our next step?" Ariel opened her laptop and plugged in the flash drive. "We find out what your father built," she said. "And we document every bite of it before the Adeyemis realize how much we know." She clicked through layers of encryption. The drive's interface loaded slowly, lines of code rolling across the screen until a login prompt appeared. "Enter passcode. Authorized users only," Ariel frowned. "There's a gatekeeper. Whoever designed this didn't want strangers poking around." Naomi leaned forward. "Try his birthday, October 12th, 1960, Ariel typed. "Access denied." "Try mine," Naomi said. "Access denied." Vera's brow furrowed. "What about his favorite hymn?" "Which one?" "The one he hummed every Sunday while tending the peppers. Light of the World." Ariel typed it in lowercase, then uppercase. The screen blinked once, twice, and then unlocked. A warm glow filled the room as a digital interface appeared, an interactive map of Georgia and Alabama marked with red and green lights, energy distribution nodes connected by glowing lines. At the center pulsed one bright dot labeled Brooks Field, Master Node. Darius leaned closer, whispering, "My God, he really built it." Naomi's heart pounded. "What exactly am I looking at?" Ariel turned the screen toward her. "This isn't just a map. It's a live grid. Your father created an independent control system for all the cooperative energy farms in the region. Whoever controls this node can reroute profits, access accounts, even shut down entire sectors. He built a failsafe, a conscience inside the grid." Naomi felt tears sting her eyes. "He did all this for the community, and they stole it to enrich themselves." Darius's voice was barely a whisper. Selene knew. That's why she wanted the drive. Vera crossed herself. That woman's family turned power into poison. Ariel was already recording the screen. "We'll clone the drive and store the copy in 3 encrypted servers under state protection. Once we verify the deed forgery and link it to Selene's father, the federal court will have grounds to freeze the Adeyemi assets." Naomi nodded slowly. "And then?" "Then," Ariel said, "we give the power back to the people it was meant for." 2 hours later, the safe house lights flickered once, twice, then went dark. Ariel looked up sharply. Backup generator should have kicked in. Auntie Vera clutched her scarf. Lord, not again. Naomi moved toward the window. Is it the storm? Darius checked his phone. No signal. Ariel cursed under her breath and reached for her flashlight. They found us faster than I thought. Before Naomi could ask who they were, headlights swept across the front yard. A black SUV rolled to a stop just beyond the fence. Its engine idled, lights off now, door cracking open. Naomi's stomach turned cold. That's not police. Ariel motioned for silence. Stay here, she whispered, drawing her weapon. She crouched near the window, peeking through a gap in the blinds. 3 men stepped out of the SUV, tall, purposeful, wearing dark raincoats. One carried a briefcase. Another had a tablet glowing in his hand. The third, the tallest, looked directly at the house as if he already knew who was inside. Who are they? Vera whispered. Ariel's eyes narrowed. Corporate recovery agents, not official law enforcement. Private security for the Adeyemi consortium. They can't touch us, Naomi said. We're under state protection. Ariel gave her a grim look. Protection only works if they play by the rules. These men don't. The porch light suddenly flicked on, then off again. A code signal, Naomi realized. Darius stood. They're signaling me. Ariel whirled on him. You told them where we were? He raised both hands. No, I swear I didn't. But Selene's people might have traced my phone before it was confiscated. Then congratulations, Ariel snapped. You just led them straight here. Before anyone could respond, a loud knock shook the door. Mrs. Brooks, a man's calm voice called out. We're not here to harm you. We just want to talk. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Ariel whispered. Stay quiet. Another knock. Harder this time. Naomi, the voice said again, softer. You want justice. So do we. But what you're holding could black out half the city if you mishandle it. Let us secure the data before something irreversible happens. Naomi's hands trembled. They're bluffing. Ariel motioned for her to move toward the back exit. We leave through the garage. Now. But before they could move, the power surged back, lights blindingly bright, and the laptop screen came alive again. The map flickered, red nodes spreading like wildfire across the display. A warning flashed, remote access detected. System breach in progress. Ariel cursed. They've hacked the network. They're trying to wipe your father's code. Naomi darted to the computer. Can't we stop them? Only from the master node, Ariel said. The one at Brooks Field. Vera gasped. We were just there. Naomi's voice turned hard. Then we're going back. Darius grabbed her arm. Naomi, listen to me. They'll kill you for that drive. Naomi's eyes blazed. Then they'll have to earn it. Ariel stuffed the laptop into a bag, yanked open the back door, and motioned them out. We'll use my car. Stay low. They slipped out into the night, running through wet grass as the agents began pounding on the front door. The sound of boots followed them. Shouts, flashlights sweeping through the dark. Naomi slid into the back seat of Ariel's SUV. The engine roared to life, and tires spat gravel as they tore down the back road toward the old solar field once more. Vera clutched the dashboard, breath ragged. What if the system's already gone? Naomi looked down at the flash drive in her hand, glinting in the dark. Then we make sure it dies with the truth, not the lie. At Brooks Field, 3:27 a.m. The storm clouds had cleared. The vast field of solar panels shimmered under the moonlight like a sleeping army. Ariel parked behind the maintenance shed and killed the engine. The control unit's inside, she said. If they're wiping remotely, we have minutes, maybe less. Naomi nodded, slipping the drive into her pocket. She could feel its cold metal against her thigh, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. They crept toward the shed. The door was ajar. Inside, dim red light flickered from control screens. A man stood there, waiting. "Welcome back," he said smoothly. Naomi froze. "Pike?" Thomas Pike looked older than she remembered from photos. Gray hair, sunken eyes, but unmistakably alive. "Reports of my death were exaggerated," he said dryly. "Someone needed me dead to keep the story clean. I took the liberty of letting them believe it." Ariel raised her weapon. "Step away from the terminal." He didn't. Instead, he turned the screen toward them. Lines of code ran endlessly across it, deleting entire system nodes one by one. "Your father was brilliant," Pike said softly, "but brilliance attracts fire. I tried to warn him." Naomi's voice shook. "You forged his signature." He nodded. "Yes. At first, for money. Later, for survival. You don't understand, Naomi. The Adeyemis aren't just an energy family. They own the patents, the ports, the politics. They control what powers half this region. Your father's code threatened that." "Then why help us now?" Ariel demanded. "Because his code was incomplete," Pike said. "He designed one final safeguard, something only his bloodline could activate." He looked directly at Naomi. "What are you saying?" she asked. "The system is bound to biometric encryption," Pike said. "To restore it, it needs your voice pattern, the same one encoded from those home videos he used while developing the system. The password isn't a word. It's you." Naomi's throat tightened. "He used my voice as the key?" "Yes," Pike said. "A father's way of ensuring only his daughter could bring light back." Ariel stepped closer. "If we let you in, can you stop the deletion?" Pike hesitated. "Only if I override it from the root terminal. But you have to decide now. Once I access it, they'll trace our location instantly." Naomi looked at the fading map on the screen. Each red node was a community losing its light, her father's legacy dying pixel by pixel. She nodded. "Do it." Pike gestured toward the mic. "Say the phrase your father always said before testing the system." Naomi closed her eyes, remembering the mornings on the farm, the scent of wet earth, her father's gentle voice as sunlight broke the clouds. She whispered, "Let there be light." The system chimed. Access granted. The red nodes froze, then began turning green one by one. The lights of the field surged back to life, bathing the shed in blinding white. Pike smiled faintly. "You did it." But his smile faded as gunfire shattered the night. Glass exploded. Vera screamed. Ariel dove to the ground, firing back through the open doorway. The sound was deafening. Bullets ricocheting off metal, the hum of panels crackling with static energy. Naomi ducked behind the console, clutching the flash drive. "Who's shooting?" Ariel shouted over the noise. "Private agents! They tracked the signal!" Pike groaned, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his shirt. "Finish the upload," he gasped. "The system will transfer control to your name. Then run!" Naomi crawled to the terminal, fingers trembling. The screen blinked. Transfer authority. Naomi O. Brooks. Confirm? She slammed the key. Transfer complete. The field roared to life. Hundreds of panels rotating in unison, their mirrored faces catching the moonlight. A wave of light swept across the valley like dawn itself. The gunfire stopped. When Naomi looked up, the agents were retreating, shielding their eyes. Ariel helped Pike to his feet, pressing her jacket to his wound. "You'll live," she said. He managed a weak smile. "Then maybe I've done one good thing before I die." Naomi stepped outside. The entire valley shimmered, a sea of light reflecting the heavens, her father's vision reborn, Vera stood beside her, tears mixing with rain. "He'd be proud," she whispered. Naomi nodded slowly. "It's not over yet. They'll come harder now." Ariel joined them, holding up the recovered laptop. "Then we go public, before they can bury the story again." Naomi looked at the horizon, where the first hints of dawn touched the sky. "Let them try. The light's mine now, and I'm not giving it back. If your late parent left you a secret invention worth billions, but powerful people were ready to kill to keep it hidden, would you risk everything to finish their mission? Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the next chapter. The fight is just beginning." The sun rose quietly over Atlanta that morning, soft golden light spilling through the clouds like a promise fulfilled. The storm was over, but the war Naomi Brooks had stepped into was just beginning. She stood on the balcony of Ariel's downtown apartment, a blanket around her shoulders, watching the city come alive. Somewhere below, horns honked, radios played, and people hurried to jobs powered by the very solar grid her father had dreamed into existence. But this morning, that grid belonged, legally and irreversibly, to her. The news had broken at dawn. Ariel and her team had leaked the verified documents, the forensic signatures, and the recovered video logs to every major outlet. The headline crawled across television screens and social media feeds alike. "Forged deed exposed. Late Olson Brooks' daughter regains control of billion-dollar solar network." The Adeyemi family's empire was crumbling before the world's eyes. Arrest warrants had been issued. Bank accounts frozen. Selene herself was being transported from holding to federal custody. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't cheer. Victory had cost too much. Behind her, Auntie Vera sat on the couch, one arm bandaged where flying glass had cut her. The children were still asleep in the next room, finally resting, finally safe. Ariel was on the phone with the governor's office, her voice calm and professional, even as exhaustion lined her face. And Darius. He stood in the doorway, freshly showered, his eyes hollow but honest for the first time in years. "You're on every news station," he said quietly. "They're calling you the woman who took back the light." Naomi turned to him, her expression unreadable. "The light was never theirs to take." He nodded. "You were right." Silence stretched between them, filled with everything they'd lost and everything they'd never be again. "I don't expect forgiveness," Darius said, his voice low, "but I want to help rebuild what I broke, whatever it takes." Naomi studied him. Once, that voice had been her comfort. Now, it was the echo of every mistake she'd survived. "Then, start by telling the truth," she said, finally. "To the courts, to the press, to our children. Let them see what greed looks like when it wears a familiar face." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I will." Ariel hung up the phone and joined them. "The Federal Commission is forming an inquiry panel," she said. "You'll be the primary witness. They're also offering to partner with you to run the cooperative as a national clean energy pilot." Naomi blinked. "They want me to lead it?" Ariel smiled faintly. "Who better? Your father built the system, but you gave it back to the people. That makes you the story America wants, and the leader it needs." Vera let out a soft laugh. From a kitchen full of pepper jars to the head of an energy empire. "Lord, you do move in mysterious ways." Naomi managed a small smile. "I'm not doing it for power, Auntie. I'm doing it so no one else ever steals another family's dream." She looked toward the window again. The light reflected off the skyscrapers, catching the glimmer of the distant solar panels that now bore her family's name once more. Brooks Energy Cooperative. 3 weeks later, the courthouse was full again, but this time, Naomi walked in not as a victim, but as a victor. Cameras flashed, not out of pity, but respect. Reporters shouted questions as she passed. "Mrs. Brooks, will you press charges against the Adeyemis? How does it feel to control a billion-dollar enterprise? Do you plan to expand the cooperative model nationwide?" She paused, looked straight at the cameras, and said clearly, "I'm not here to celebrate wealth. I'm here to restore integrity. My father believed power, whether electric or political, belongs to the people who create it. And from this day forward, that's exactly where it'll stay." The crowd erupted in applause. Even some of the press dropped their mics for a moment of genuine respect. From the corner of the courtroom, Darius watched, head bowed. He'd turned himself in, confessed his role in the forgery cover-up, and agreed to testify against Selene's father. The judge had granted leniency in exchange for cooperation. It didn't erase the past, but it wrote a small line of redemption into his story. Naomi didn't look back at him, not out of cruelty, but closure. Her children sat in the front row beside Auntie Vera, smiling proudly. Micah whispered something to Maya, who laughed softly. For the first time, Naomi saw no trace of fear in their eyes. The judge entered. The crowd fell silent. He cleared his throat and read from the document on his bench. "By order of this court, ownership and operational control of the Sunspire Kita Solar Network is hereby returned to its rightful beneficiary, the Brooks Family Trust, represented by Ms. Naomi Olson Brooks." The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. Ariel placed a gentle hand on Naomi's shoulder. "It's official." Naomi exhaled. "Then let's get to work." 1 month later, a ribbon-cutting ceremony was held at the old Brooks farm, now transformed into the headquarters of the Olson Brooks Energy Cooperative. The mango tree had been replanted, a young sapling growing strong in the exact spot where Naomi had unearthed the truth. She stood before a crowd of local farmers, community leaders, and journalists, her voice carrying over the hum of the crowd. "My father believed light should never serve greed, only growth. This land once fed people with peppers. Now it feeds them with power, real power, the kind that warms homes, builds futures, and belongs to everyone." Applause rolled through the field. The children released white balloons, each printed with the words, "For the people, for the light." As they floated upward, Naomi's heart swelled. Vera stood beside her, smiling through tears. "You did it, child." Naomi looked at the horizon, where hundreds of solar panels glittered under the sun. "No," she said softly. "We did it." Ariel joined them, holding a new document, one Naomi had drafted herself. "What's this?" Vera asked. Naomi smiled. "A cooperative charter. Every community in this state can now buy shares in the network. No boardroom politics, no billionaire control, just everyday people owning their own light." Ariel grinned. "Your father would have been proud." Naomi nodded, eyes lifting to the clear sky. "He already is." That night, as the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Naomi sat alone beneath the young mango tree. The evening breeze carried the hum of the solar panels, the chorus of crickets, and the echo of her father's voice in her memory. "When the world forgets who owns the light, remind them with kindness, not revenge." She smiled faintly. "I remembered, Papa." The lights from the field flickered once, not in malfunction, but almost in acknowledgement. Naomi exhaled, leaned back, and watched the stars shimmer above the newly restored empire that was never meant to be hers alone, but for everyone. What did you learn from Naomi's journey about resilience, betrayal, and justice? Would you forgive Darius, or would you let him live with his guilt? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've been inspired by this story, hit that like, share, and subscribe button to keep the light shining for more stories like Unaware We'd One Day Become Billionaires.